Hello, welcome to 1 Minute Wiser. This is Christy Bridges, and today we are still looking at James 1. It's full of good stuff. Verses 26 through 27 say, "Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. True religion is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." You would think that James was writing in modern times, but our current situation is nothing new. God said over and over again in the Old Testament that He wanted His people to look after the poor and the foreigner among them. He went so far in Isaiah as to say, "I don't want your sacrifices if you're going to let injustice prevail." And so James reiterated what God had been saying for centuries. You know, Jesus himself came down from a widow who was also a foreigner. One of his ancestors was Ruth. There's a whole book about her in the Old Testament, and she arrived in Israel with her mother-in-law and no money after her husband had passed away. But God had instilled a law that said farmers had to leave behind the gleanings. That's just the extra of the grain when they gathered it up. If it was too big to fit the bundle, they weren't to go back and pick it up. They were to leave it behind for the poor people who could come through and gather grain for their own families. And that's how Ruth survived. And that's actually how she ended up marrying the farmer who noticed how hardworking she was. So God bless you today. Go in peace and remember to be faithful to the Word. Bye.